Okay, so for today's video, we are going to discuss something about trigonometric functions of any angles. This is somewhat an introduction or a part of the circular function. Okay, but before that, let us have a short review of what we have discussed in our previous topics, especially angles in standard position. Okay, so what do we mean by angles in standard position? So if we would have our Cartesian coordinate system, let's say for example we have an angle which measures 120 degrees. This angle is said to be in its standard position if its initial side coincides with the positive x-axis. Okay, so that is the meaning of an angle in its standard position. And so with this one, let us have an angle which measures 165 degrees. Since its initial side coincides with the positive x-axis, then we can say that the angle is in its standard position. And we can actually determine where a certain angle or an angle in standard position is said to be terminate in a certain quadrant depending upon the position of its terminal side. Okay, let's say for example let's go back to our first example. Let us have this one. Let us have an angle which measures 120 degrees. Okay, since its terminal side lies on the second quadrant, meaning to say the angle which measures 120 degrees terminate in the second quadrant. Okay, and so with this one, the angle which measures 165 degrees, since its terminal side lies on the second quadrant, then this angle is said to be terminated in the second quadrant. Okay, let's say for example, let us have another one. Suppose our angle is less than 90 degrees. Well, therefore, it won't be passing, or it won't pass this positive y-axis because this is a 90-degree angle if matatandaan po natin. Meaning to say, if the angle measures less than 90 degrees, well, that certain angle terminate on the first quadrant. Okay, but if our angle measures greater than 90 degrees but less than 180 degrees, then it would possibly be in the second quadrant, or definitely be in the second quadrant. And if our angle measures more than 180 degrees but less than 270 degrees, then its terminal side will be in the third quadrant. So meaning the angle terminates on the third quadrant. Okay, so if we would notice, those angles in standard position wherein the terminal side lies on the third quadrant are what we so-called the reflex angle. Okay, reflex angle. Next, or the back bend. But if our angle measures more than 270 degrees but less than 360 degrees, that angle would terminate on the fourth quadrant. Well, anyway, still the angle in standard position which measures more than 270 degrees but less than 360 degrees are still reflex angle. Okay, next, there are actually relationship between two angles when we place it in its standard position. Okay, let's say for example, we have this angle which measures 74 degrees. We say that this angle is in its standard position since our initial side coincides with the positive x-axis, and we can also say that this angle terminates on the first quadrant since its terminal side lies on the first quadrant. Okay, we have this so-called coterminal angles. What do we mean by coterminal angles? Coterminal angles are angles wherein when we place both angle in its standard position, their terminal side coincides or overlap. Okay, let's say for example we have this one. We have this angle which measures 74 degrees. This is just one angle. So let us find another angle, or let us name another angle which is coterminous with this one. Ibig sabihin, yung terminal side niya nandito din. So it's either we rotate positively or we rotate negatively. What do you mean by that? It's either we have counterclockwise rotation or a clockwise rotation. Okay, and if you still remember that if we have a counterclockwise rotation, then we are after a positive rotation, and if we have a clockwise rotation, then we have a negative rotation. Okay, so let us name an angle which is coterminous with a 74-degree angle. Okay, so let us have a positive rotation. So from this point we will rotate, or we will have a one complete rotation, meaning to say this angle with more than this rotation would be coterminous with 74 degrees. So how are we going to determine the measure of the angle? So what we're going to do, since we just we just rotated it once from 74 degree, meaning to say we added 360 degree to 74 degrees to determine an angle which is coterminous with 74 degrees. So meaning to say that is 74 degrees plus 360 degrees equals 434 degrees. So meaning to say this angle which measures 434 degrees is coterminous with the angle which measures 74 degrees. So that is when we are after a positive rotation. But what if we have a negative rotation? So meaning to say from this point, we're gonna be rotating clockwise. Okay? So clockwise po tayong mag-rotate. So we'll have a negative rotation. So from this point, from our initial side, that's going to be that rotation. Okay? So that would be 74 degrees plus a negative 360 degrees since we have a negative rotation. So the answer would be negative 286 degrees. Meaning to say, the angle which measures negative 286 degrees is coterminous with 74 degrees. Okay? So those are coterminal angles. So it depends upon the situation whether the problem requires you to have to name at least two coterminal angles in a given angle in such a way that it's either positive or negative rotation.